The first sound was laughter, a deep, almost maniacal chuckle that echoed through the cave like a bear growling through gravel. The kind of laugh that doesn't belong in a fight for survival. Rex Mandrick had just been thrown through a wall of stone by a plasma-laced trident. 2 of his ribs were probably somewhere near his pancreas, and the 6 alien warlords had him completely surrounded. Yet there he was, grinning through the blood on his teeth, eyes locked onto the leader's massive chrome mandibles, and whispering like he just remembered something really, really funny. "Oh, right. I forgot I had those." With trembling fingers, he reached behind a loose rock and pulled out a black box with 3 faded words: armor. Piercing. Rounds. The warlords didn't understand the language, but they understood the tone. Something had just changed. 6 hours earlier, Rex was making a stew. Not just any stew, mind you, this was a special occasion stew. He'd been living off-grid for the past 7 years, ever since he, accidentally, blew up a research outpost in Antarctica. He had everything a man could need: a cave fortified with 6 feet of steel, hand-dug tunnels that would make a mole cry with envy, and a solar-powered freezer filled with illegal interstellar meats he absolutely wasn't supposed to have. The world thought Rex Mandrick was either dead or insane. Truth was, he was both, but also, he made a hell of a gumbo. He was chopping alien okra when the mountain shook. The rumble came first, followed by a high-pitched scream, like an angry kettle with vengeance issues. He looked up, eyes squinting through the moss-covered slit in the stone ceiling, and saw a fireball tearing across the Montana sky. It hit the northern ridge like a divine slap from the gods, followed by silence so heavy even the birds paused their gossip. Rex muttered to no one in particular, "If that's another interdimensional Jehovah's Witness, I'm going back to Canada." It wasn't. It was worse. The ship that crashed was unlike anything he'd ever seen, and Rex had seen plenty. Twisted chrome ribs, glowing veins of pulsar light, and engines that looked suspiciously like demonic antlers. It didn't belong on Earth. Then again, neither did Rex, not entirely. Not since the Martian ambassador incident. He didn't go to the wreck. That's what amateurs do. Instead, he reinforced the cave entrances, activated Lorna, the AI assistant he programmed using leftover Soviet satellite code, and opened his emergency liquor cabinet. "How bad?" he asked, sipping from a flask labeled "Don't drink unless the sky falls." Lorna's voice buzzed with dry sarcasm. 6 combatants. Biomechanical. Seem angry. Like your ex. Only shinier. And then, like clockwork, they came. They weren't subtle. The first one, a towering brute of muscle and metal, stomped through the treeline with 2 blades for arms and a plasma cannon embedded in its chest. Rex watched from his peephole, whispering to himself like a disappointed parent. "See, this is what happens when aliens don't get hugged enough." The others followed, each more horrifying than the last. One had a hive of nanobots for a face. Another moved like liquid obsidian and spoke in binary. Their leader, Carnith the Flayer, was part scorpion, part war tank, and all attitude. Carnith spoke her standard, but with the kind of voice that sounded like it ate gravel and dreams for breakfast. "Surrender the fugitive," he said, "or we will raise this terrain and bleach its bones." Rex blinked. "I think you've mistaken me for someone who cares." They attacked. The cave exploded in fire and fury. Plasma bolts ripped through walls. Bear traps caught ankles. Explosives rigged to rock formations went off like New Year's fireworks. Rex moved like he'd rehearsed this, because he had. For fun. Every Tuesday was Alien Ambush Simulation Day. He fired a modified shotgun, loaded with shells made from meteorite fragments. One warlord lost a leg and shrieked in digital agony. Another slipped on spilled stew. Rex didn't even aim that time, just pointed and hoped for irony. But chaos has a habit of biting back. They adapted. They surrounded. They cut off his exits and shut down Lorna's comms. One by one, his defenses crumbled. Rex found himself slammed into the cave wall, his right arm dangling uselessly. He laughed anyway, not because he wasn't scared, but because fear was boring and overdone. And somewhere in that laugh, something ancient stirred. A piece of the old Rex, the one who once suplexed a Martian war beast on live TV, resurfaced. That's when he reached for the box. The armor-piercing rounds were a last resort. Too powerful, too unstable, and too illegal. He'd stolen them from a black site in Uruguay after losing a poker game to a four-eyed CIA handler. Use only if sh*T gets weird, the handler had said. Rex loaded them into his railgun, a Frankenstein of Earth steel and alien circuitry. The hum it made could cook meat. He fired. The first round punched through the closest warlord like a hot knife through space jelly. It ricocheted off a stone column and lodged itself in another's chest, igniting the fusion core. The cave lit up with alien fire and roaring fury. Rex stood in the middle of it, bloodied, cracked, and very much alive. He looked Carnith dead in the eye and grinned. Now it's a fair fight. The smell of scorched rock lingered like a stubborn ghost. Rex coughed once, shook the blood from his lips, and stumbled down a narrow tunnel behind the cave's main chamber, dragging the railgun behind him like a wounded animal. Every footstep sent fresh pain through his side, but his grin hadn't faded. It just twitched slightly now and then, like it was daring his body to try dying. Behind him, the cave was collapsing in sections, alien gore sizzling on the walls, and at least one warlord still howling through the rubble. Rex didn't bother to look back. They'd follow. They always did. What mattered now was getting to the lower levels, his real home. The upper cave was just a welcome mat. The real defenses were deeper, darker, and far more illegal. The access shaft hissed open with a reluctant sigh, as if even the metal door was fed up with today's events. The elevator dropped like a stone, Rex leaning against the wall, eyes closed, counting the seconds between heartbeats and wondering which rib was trying to stab his lung. The humming voice of Lorna crackled back to life through a speaker near his head. She sounded annoyed. You look like someone fed you to a meat grinder, then insulted the grinder's mother. Miss you too, Rex muttered, wiping soot from his forehead. I was offline for 47 seconds. During that time, 3 of my cameras were vaporized, 2 drones were eviscerated, and my stew monitoring algorithm was brutally deactivated. Tragic. The Okra will be avenged. The elevator stopped at sublevel 3. The doors opened to reveal a bunker that looked more like the love child of a Cold War shelter and an alien rave. Steel walls glowed faintly with embedded circuits, the floor hummed with energy, and several weaponized mannequins stood in intimidating poses for no tactical reason. Rex limped toward the armory wall, placed his hand on a scanner, and tried not to bleed on the panel. A rack of hybrid weaponry rose from the floor, offering him everything from a Martian ion lance to a chainsaw attached to what appeared to be a toaster. He took the toaster. What's the plan? Lorna asked. Adapt. Upgrade. Take out the space bugs? You mean the 6 heavily armed alien assassins? 3 now. I think. The railgun did some redecorating. Lorna's screen blinked. I'm detecting movement in the upper shaft. You have less than 5 minutes before someone drops in uninvited. Then it's time to play with toys. He tossed aside the ruined pieces of his old armor and began strapping on a new exosuit, one he built from salvaged alien plating and a meat smoker from the 80s. It hissed, sparked, and clamped around him like an angry robot hug. His limbs felt heavier, but stronger. The chest plate pulsed with a gravity core he'd swiped from a crashed cruiser last spring. Lorna patched into the suit's interface, syncing up with Rex's nervous system. He winced as metal fused with muscle, but smiled when he flexed his fingers and dented a steel beam. 3 warlords breached the sublevel moments later. The first one was the fastest, leaping through the shaft with the grace of a panther made entirely of razors. Rex sidestepped and slammed his toaster saw hybrid into its side, watching sparks and alien fluid explode in midair. The creature shrieked, and Rex yelled back. Bet you didn't expect brunch! The second warlord was more methodical, liquid metal forming weapons as it approached. Rex dove behind a barricade, tossed a homemade EMP grenade, and watched the thing seize up mid-transformation, collapsing in a puddle of angry goop. Lorna snorted through the speakers. Brilliant! You beat a shapeshifter with a soda can and a prayer. The third one didn't attack. It simply watched. A tall, narrow figure with eyes that glowed like dying suns. It stepped forward slowly, hands raised. Rex raised his railgun. Say the wrong word and I turn you into cosmic pasta. I'm not here to kill you, the alien said in perfect English, its voice a calm wind wrapped in regret. I'm here to help. Rex blinked. Well, that's a plot twist. My name is Zeka. I was one of them, once. But I no longer follow Carnith. He's not on a mission. He's cleansing. Testing. Earth is a target, not an accident. Rex eyed him. Why should I believe anything that bleeds blue and talks pretty? Because your DNA is on every warlord ship. The words landed like gunfire in a quiet room. Zeka explained slowly, carefully, that years ago, during a secret program no human government ever admitted to, Rex's DNA was sampled during an intergalactic combat tournament on Ganymede. The alien scientists were fascinated by his pain tolerance, his chaotic thinking, and his raw aggression. They used his genetic code as a base template for a new generation of soldiers. The irony was cosmic. He wasn't just fighting the enemy, he was fighting twisted versions of himself. Rex sat down heavily on a crate. You're telling me I'm their dad? In a manner of speaking, Zeka said. I didn't sign up for alien child support. Before Zeka could answer, alarm screamed. Lorna's voice turned sharp. They're activating a beacon. Something bigger's coming. Much bigger. Zeka's face darkened. They've called the cruiser. If it lands, Earth is finished. Rex stood, eyes blazing. Then we don't let it land. They raced to the central chamber of the sublevel, where Rex had hidden a relic he'd found years ago during a short-lived mercenary gig in the Rings of Sharon. He never figured out what it did, only that it hummed when he bled near it and gave him headaches when he stared too long. Now, the relic pulsed with energy. Lorna scanned it, voice uncertain for the first time in years. This isn't just alien tech. This is pre-singularity. It predates their warlords. It's either a power core, a sentient weapon, or a very dangerous paperweight. Rex grinned. Let's hope it's door number 2. As the ceiling cracked above them and the cruiser's engines roared like Judgment Day, Rex placed his hand on the relic. Pain shot through his skull. Visions. Burning stars. Screaming voices. He saw the history of war, the DNA mapping, the first prototype, him. He saw Carnith in a lab, watching footage of Rex in combat. Saw the orders. The obsession. The betrayal. When he pulled his hand away, the relic had fused to his suit. His spine straightened. His breath steadied. He could feel the gravity around him, the molecules in the air, the very beat of the cruiser miles above. He was stronger. Faster. But also, not entirely himself anymore. Lorna whispered through the comms. You okay, boss? Rex's voice came back lower, steadier. Let's go ruin an alien's day. The storm outside was no longer weather. It was fury. The cruiser had breached Earth's lower stratosphere and the clouds churned in spirals of purple fire, warping wind and light as it descended. The ground itself quivered, ancient stone uneasy beneath the arrival of something so vast and unnatural. Rex stood at the mouth of his cave, the relic now embedded in the center of his chest plate, glowing with an intensity that made shadows twitch. His eyes shimmered faintly with residual energy, but the old smirk was still there, half defiance, half bad idea. Zeka stood beside him, weapons drawn, body tense, and posture that of a being who knew death by name but still shook its hand. They didn't speak as the first drop pods fell. Words weren't necessary when everything ahead of you looked like the universe's version of Judgment Day. The pods slammed into the earth, spitting dust and heat into the air as warlord drones burst forth, dozens of them, each a mechanical nightmare wrapped in organic armor. They moved in coordination, a hive mind powered by hate, precision, and programming. Rex didn't wait for them to form ranks. He charged. The exosuit hummed with power, his boots cracking stone beneath each step. He leapt higher than physics allowed and landed in the center of the first wave like a thunderclap. His fists glowed with gravitational force, each punch sending drones spiraling into the trees or embedding them into the canyon walls. Zeka followed, firing twin plasma blades that arced with blue light, dancing through enemies with elegance that made Rex's fighting style look like a drunken bear swatting flies. But no matter how many they tore through, more kept coming. A drone with twin blades leapt at Rex's back. He spun, caught it midair, and slammed it into the dirt so hard the ground cracked open. He barely had time to look up before a volley of plasma bolts rained down from the cruiser above. Zeka tackled him just in time, both of them tumbling into a trench carved by the earlier impact. They hit hard, tumbling down into what looked like an ancient cave system, lit faintly by the glow of the relic in Rex's chest and the flickering deathlight from Zeka's wounds. Rex sat up, wincing, and looked around. The air here was different, thicker, older. Walls were lined with carvings that pulsed faintly, symbols and shapes too ancient for Earth's history. Zeka coughed, pulled himself upright, and stared at the walls with wide eyes. "This place is real," Zeka whispered. "I thought it was myth." Rex raised an eyebrow. "You saying we fell into an alien holy site?" "No. Worse. We fell into a memory." The symbols weren't just decorations, they moved. As Rex approached, they shifted to show scenes. Battles. Galaxies consumed by war. A race older than the Warlords. Technology that bent time. He touched one of the carvings and was hit by a vision again. Carnith, being chosen, experimented on, twisted from an organic soldier into a biomechanical tyrant. And then, something worse, an image of Rex himself, years ago, bloodied in a battle arena, DNA scanned and copied, his essence stored in a data crystal that would become the blueprint for every warlord since. The relic pulsed louder, hotter. Zeka looked away. "You weren't just an accident, Rex. You were the beginning. The prototype. The mistake they couldn't stop repeating." Rex clenched his fists. "And now I'm gonna be the one who ends it." They emerged from the memory cave into a clearing directly beneath the cruiser. Its underside was open now, like the belly of a beast, rows of weapon ports and troop tubes aimed at the earth below. The air crackled with tension, the roar of its engines shaking the sky. A figure dropped from the ship, a shape both monstrous and familiar. Carnith the Flayer landed like a meteor, his massive form denting the ground. His armor gleamed with alien runes, and his eyes burned with recognition. "Prototype Zero," Carnith said, his voice amplified by the ship, echoing across miles. "You have fulfilled your purpose. Now die with honor." Rex didn't wait. He launched himself at Carnith, gravity warping in his wake, fists colliding with alien alloy in a symphony of destruction. The impact sent shockwaves through the forest. Carnith reeled back, snarling, and returned the blow with a force that launched Rex through a boulder. Zeka joined the fight, attacking from the side, carving deep grooves into Carnith's armor before being backhanded into a tree so hard the bark screamed. They fought across cliffs and fire, through fallen trees and collapsing stone. Carnith was stronger, but Rex was unpredictable. The relic in his chest adapted, reacting to Carnith's movements, giving him bursts of power and speed in critical moments. But Carnith was learning. He anticipated Rex's next punch, caught it, and drove a spike knee into Rex's gut, cracking armor and nearly breaking him in half. Rex collapsed to his knees, gasping, suit failing, blood in his mouth. Carnith raised a massive blade, a weapon humming with stolen power. "You were never meant to survive," he said. "You were a tool. A vessel." Rex looked up, eyes defiant. "Then I'll die as the one tool that broke your whole damn set." He reached into his belt and pulled the last armor-piercing round, the one he'd saved. He jammed it into a small device, part detonator, part joke he'd once called the angry toothpick. He drove it straight into Carnith's chest. The explosion was less a sound and more a shock. Carnith staggered, armor cracking, light bursting from within. He roared in agony, grabbing Rex by the throat and lifting him, determined to take him with him. But then, the relic activated. A blast of energy pulsed from Rex's chest, disintegrating Carnith's arm, and sending both of them flying in opposite directions. Rex hit the ground hard and didn't move. The relic dimmed. The sky above calmed slightly as the cruiser began to lose power, spiraling slowly, fire bleeding from its engines. Zeka crawled to Rex's side, touching his shoulder, unsure if he was alive. Rex opened one eye and groaned. "Well, that sucked." Zeka laughed, a broken, exhausted sound. "You insane, stubborn bastard." Rex coughed. "Hey! At least I got him to shut up." The cruiser tilted in the sky like a drunk god had slipped while setting it down. Smoke poured from its engines, and its once smooth underbelly had been torn open like a can of soup by an angry bear. Rex lay motionless on the cratered ground, the edges of his vision flickering with darkness. The relic embedded in his chest plate pulsed weakly now, no longer glowing with celestial fury, but with the tired rhythm of something that had given too much too quickly. He blinked against the sunlight breaking through the storm, tried to sit up, and immediately regretted it as pain flared through every inch of his body. Zeka knelt beside him, one hand on his shoulder, the other holding a plasma blade at the ready. They both knew the fight wasn't over. Lorna's voice crackled through what remained of Rex's comms, distorted but recognizable. There was a bitter tone beneath the sarcasm now, like she was angry at the situation, not him. She reported in fragments: systems down, atmospheric radiation spiking, enemy reinforcements approaching. Rex struggled to get to his feet, groaning through cracked ribs and exhaustion that felt older than time itself. The moment he stood, the ground trembled beneath them. A fresh fleet of drones began pouring from the cruiser's side bays, smaller and more agile, but no less deadly. Their bodies gleamed with the same war metal as Carnith's armor, and their eyes lit up red as they zeroed in on Rex. Zeka spun his blades into motion and glanced at Rex. There was no need for a speech or a plan. They both understood. This was the last stand. The drones descended in coordinated formation, swooping down with deadly precision. Rex activated what was left of his exosuit's jump core and hurled himself into their path. His fist struck with less power than before, but enough to send the first two drones crashing into each other. Zeka moved like a ghost through the chaos, slicing cleanly, never pausing, never hesitating. They fought side by side, back to back, a human weapon and an alien defector united not by trust, but by survival. But the numbers were overwhelming. Rex's armor began to crack at the seams, sparks flying from joints that once glowed with power. His breath grew labored. The relic's pulses slowed, and Lorna's voice began to fade. Her final words were soft, barely audible in the madness. She told him a joke. Something simple. A memory. From the early days of the cave, before the weapons and the warlords. Back when Rex was still learning how to program her, and she kept translating every sentence into Russian. He smiled despite himself. Then came the shutdown. Lorna's voice vanished, leaving only static in his ear. Rex fell to one knee. A drone lunged at him. He raised his arm to block, too slow. But instead of claws, there was a blast. A sudden overload in the network. Drones jerked midair, spiraled, exploded. Sparks fell like rain. Zeka looked up in shock. The cruiser itself had begun glitching, lights flickering. Systems shutting down. Lorna had gone out with a bang. She'd overridden the enemy network, linked herself to their systems during her final moments, and burned them from the inside out. The blast had come from the cruiser's mainframe. She had sacrificed herself to give Rex one more chance. He whispered her name once and stood again. Something deep inside him refused to fall now. Not after that. Not after everything. Then Carnith returned. The explosion hadn't killed him. His armor was charred, one arm missing, fluid leaking from several ruptures in his body. But his eyes still burned with hate, and his steps cracked the earth. He was slower now, but still a monster. Rex staggered forward, barely able to hold up his fists. Carnith's voice was lower now, gurgling. He spoke of destiny, of inevitability, of the cycle that birthed Rex and would eventually replace him with something worse. He said that no matter what Rex did, Earth would fall. It always did. That history was a loop and Rex was just another cog. Rex responded with a punch that cracked Carnith's remaining jaw. The final battle was less a fight and more a demolition derby. Both men, one human, one half-machine abomination, hurled themselves at each other like crashing asteroids. No finesse, no strategy. Just brute force. Rex used every trick he had left. A hidden knife in his boot. A fistful of dirt thrown in Carnith's eyes. He headbutt, screamed. Carnith responded in kind. He crushed Rex's helmet with a clawed foot. Tore chunks from the exosuit. Stabbed him twice. But Rex didn't stop. He didn't even hesitate. In a moment of pure instinct, he saw the weak point, Carnith's neural implant, exposed just beneath the jawline from an earlier hit. Rex reached for the chain around his neck, his old dog tags scorched but intact. He wrapped them around his fist, lunged forward, and drove the metal straight into the implant. The effect was immediate. Carnith convulsed, shrieked, sparks and light bursting from his skull. The energy coursed through his body, frying what remained of his systems. With a final roar that echoed across the mountains, Carnith collapsed. Rex fell with him. There was silence. For a moment, it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. The wind whispered. Ash floated in the air like snow. Zeka approached slowly, checking Carnith's body, confirming it was over. Rex groaned and rolled over onto his back, blinking up at the sky. He didn't know if it was morning or dusk. He just knew it was quieter now. Zeka sat beside him, clutching his side where blood seeped through torn armor. So, still planning to retire in this cave? Rex chuckled, winced, and stared at the clouds. Maybe. But I think I'm gonna need a hot tub and someone else to handle the alien stew nights. They both laughed. It wasn't triumphant. It wasn't even relieved. It was the laugh of two survivors who didn't believe they were supposed to still be breathing, but were too stubborn to stop. Then, in the distance, sirens. Human ones. Government aircraft. Helicopters. Rex sighed. Here comes the cleanup crew. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the breeze wash over his bruised face. He whispered, not to Zeka, not even to himself, but to the ghost in his ear. You were the best smartass toaster I ever had. The sun rose over the scorched hills like it was trying to pretend nothing had happened. Blue skies stretched above a landscape still reeling from cosmic trauma, smoke curling from shattered treetops and the fractured earth where the cruiser had plummeted like an angry god. The air was thick with the scent of ash, ozone, and something older, something unnatural that hadn't existed on Earth before the alien ship had torn open the sky. The birds returned slowly, cautiously, chirping tentative notes, as if waiting for the all-clear. In the center of the destruction stood what remained of Rex's cave, half buried, half burned, but somehow still upright. Like it, too, had fought and refused to fall. Rex sat outside what used to be the main entrance, arms wrapped in gauze, ribs strapped with layers of nano-bandages, and one leg resting on a makeshift splint fashioned from what had once been part of a plasma rifle. He was chewing on something that might have been jerky or possibly alien cartilage. He didn't seem to care which. His face was bruised and sunburnt, and his eyes carried the heavy look of someone who hadn't slept in days. But there was a deep calm under the exhaustion, the kind that comes from surviving the kind of story that no one would ever believe unless they had also bled under 2 moons and punched a warlord in the throat. Around him, military tents had begun to pop up, the kind of impromptu response only Black Ops units could pull off without alerting a single local news van. Drones circled above. Scientists whispered in nervous clusters while pointing Geiger counters at trees. No one came too close to Rex. Not yet. Not after the reports. Not after the tapes. They'd seen the footage from Lorna's black box, a system that had apparently transmitted everything before her final burn. They knew what he'd done, what he'd fought, and more importantly, what he was. Earth's first confirmed extraterrestrial genetic prototype. The man who had somehow been at the center of 2 species' future. And still refused to shave. Zeka stood nearby, arms crossed, watching the horizon with sharp eyes. The alien's wounds were healing faster than Rex's thanks to his regenerative physiology, but the emotional fatigue clung just as hard. The cruiser's remains had been sealed off, declared an environmental hazard and a level 10 containment site. Whatever was left of Carnith had been incinerated in the wreckage. Still, both Rex and Zeka knew something the humans didn't. This wasn't the end of anything. It was just a prelude. One of the officials finally approached, a woman in a pressed black suit, flanked by a man carrying a sleek tablet and looking like he hadn't blinked in 20 minutes. She stood a safe distance from Rex, then cleared her throat with the kind of respect usually reserved for ancient lions or short-tempered landmines. She introduced herself as Director Halvorsen of the United Nations Covert Defense Assembly, which, as Rex pointed out with a half-smile, sounded made up by a tired screenwriter. She offered him a position. Lead advisor for Earth's Planetary Defense Initiative. Full access to global resources, discretion guaranteed, and, as she put it, the ability to design his own command cave. With a hot tub. Rex chewed thoughtfully and glanced over at the wreckage, then at Zeka, then at the horizon. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled a battered cassette tape from his pocket, one of Lorna's old data cores. It was scorched at the edges but intact. He handed it to the director without a word. "That," he said, "was the smartest person in the cave. If you want me on your team, I want her rebuilt." Halvorsen didn't argue. That night, Rex sat beside a campfire made from alien fuel canisters and dry pine. The stars above were clearer now, sharper somehow, as if the battle had peeled back something false in the sky. Zeka joined him, offering a can of something that fizzed green when opened. Rex took it without question and sipped. It tasted like regret and lime. Zeka finally broke the silence. "They'll come," he said. "Carnith's death will echo. The real warlords, the ones who built the system, will notice." Rex nodded slowly. "Let them. I'm tired of hiding." Zeka smiled faintly. "Then you should know something. You're not just a blueprint. You're a glitch. An error in their design. They can't predict you. That scares them." Rex looked into the fire for a long moment before answering. "Good." Weeks passed. The world didn't end. Not immediately, anyway. Rex was given a new bunker, a facility disguised as an abandoned ranger station somewhere in northern Alaska. It was massive, silent, full of secrets. The Lorna core was uploaded into a new body, a sleek AI system with holographic projectors and a sarcastic personality that somehow felt warmer than most people. The first thing she said to Rex when she booted up was, "Miss me, cave monkey?" Rex laughed for the first time in weeks. He trained quietly. Modified weapons. Studied the data Zeka brought from the cruiser. He read ancient star charts and alien histories etched in forgotten languages. He didn't say it aloud, but he knew it was coming. The warlords had sent scouts. Now the architects would arrive. And when they did, Rex would be ready. One night, long after everyone else had gone to sleep, Rex stood outside the bunker, staring at the stars. Lorna's voice buzzed softly in his ear. "You know they'll never stop." "I'm counting on it," he replied. Far away, beyond the outer rim of any telescope, a cryopod opened. A creature stirred in the dark, ancient and patient, its body pulsing with dormant fury. It spoke a name as its first words in 1,000 years. "Bring me the human. The one who killed Carnith. Bring me Bearclaw."